This week's episode of the And She Looked Up podcast is brought to you by Fine Lime Illustrations. If you love quirky, colorful art transformed into fun, handmade stationery items, pretty much guaranteed to brighten somebody's day, that's just what you'll find in my new online shop at finelimeillustrations.com. That's fine as in I'm fine, lime as in the fruit, illustrations.com. Browse the entire collection or sign up for my email list to see some behind the scenes peeks into my studio. You'll also get first notice of new product launches and subscriber only sales. And as an added little bonus, you'll also receive a free coloring sheet to help you relax and de-stress from your day. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the And She Looked Up podcast. Each week, we sit down with inspiring Canadian women who create for a living. We talk about their creative journeys and their best business tips, as well as the creative and business mindset issues all creative entrepreneurs struggle with. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and after leaving a 20-year career in corporate retail, I've been happily self-employed for 12 years. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a multi-six-figure-a-year entrepreneur in the digital content space. This podcast is for the artists, the makers, and the creatives who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I am your host, Melissa, and my spectacular, semi-regular guest host, Heather Travis, is here today. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Melissa.
We are talking today about creating products for your service-based business, but before we dive into that, I do just want to mention, for those of you who may not know, there is a new way that you can support the podcast. It is through our podcast host, Buzzsprout. And for as little as $3 a month, you can financially support the podcast. It helps us create this great content. Well, I think it's great. I think Heather thinks it's great. So hopefully you all think it's great every couple of weeks. And it helps us to keep things going. It does cost some monies to make the podcast happen. And as a thank you for your subscription, you will get access to, at a minimum, one bonus mini episode every month, even during our summer hiatus. So just as a little thank you for supporting us. So if that is something that you are interested in doing, there will be a link in the show notes where you can go sign up and create a subscription. So I think that's a really cool feature that Buzzsprout has added. So without having to open a Patreon account or anything like that, this is just really, really easy. And what is $3 a month these days? Does it buy you anything at Starbucks anymore?
You can't. Yeah, you can't. I don't know if you can buy a coffee. I mean, if you could buy a coffee for $3, I don't know. This is a coffee snob speaking, but I don't know if I would want to drink it. Would be me.
I don't drink coffee, but even a cup of tea costs $3.
Yeah,
you know, so
I make it. I'm a homebrew kind of gal.
Me too. I'm very picky about how my tea is brewed. So I don't like people just slopping a tea bag in a cup. It gets me stressed out. So
I'm with you on that one.
So today, as I said, we're going to be talking about ways that you can create products for your service-based business. So if you are a creative who already makes products, so you make a physical product to sell, you might be thinking this isn't the episode for you, but I do think you might get some ideas here for things that you hadn't thought of before that are maybe a little outside of what you normally do. And at the end of the episode, we are going to flip the script a little bit and talk about some potential services you can offer if you are somebody who makes products. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know that Heather and I are all about multiple streams of revenue as a way to protect the stability of your business. Because if we have learned anything, like we're literally coming up on the 3rd anniversary of COVID, which is still amongst us. And that, along with the economy and rising interest rates and everything that's going on, and there's more unfortunate things going on in the news yesterday that make me wonder what the future holds. So you just never know what's going to happen. And so having different streams of revenue or different avenues to earn income is always a good thing. Even if you choose not to necessarily put all your focus into every, give them all 100% of the time, at least they're there and you can ramp them up if you need to. So it's always nice to have some ideas in the back of your head for things
Yes.
that you could do besides your core business.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today. I also just wanted to do this episode because I feel like sometimes people like me, the graphic designers and the photographers and the fashion designers who maybe don't create a tangible product to sell, sometimes we don't pay enough attention to y'all. So that's what we wanted to do today, was kind of do something that pays some attention to you. Yes.
And I would say for sure, no matter whether you create products and then decide to sell services, or you sell services and then decide to create products, you still have to think about your audience. You have to understand how it's going to work for your business. You have to understand the financial ramifications, and in particular the time. And I think a lot of the things, whether we touch on it as a product or a service, a lot of these are things that it's like not necessarily passive income, but for instance, I deliver presentations regularly. I've delivered the same presentation over and over and over again. So once I create it, going back and simply refining it and editing it for the upcoming audience took way less time than creating it initially. And so once I created that asset, the time and being able to use it over and over and over again and continue to generate revenue is amazing. And so there's so many different ways you can slice the pie and generate income, either passively or semi-passively. And that involves both products and services, and sometimes both. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you raised a good point there in that knowing who your audience is. And there is a very real possibility that your audience for your services will be different than your audience for your products, although ideally you do want them to overlap. But that actually takes me right into the very first one on my list, which is things like creating a course. And so let's say you're a photographer. One of the things that you get asked all the time as a photographer is, besides people being interested in your work and hiring you for the finished product, which is your photographs, you probably get asked all the time, what kind of equipment do you use? How do you light your photos? Yeah, how do you do your lighting? How do you pose people? All those things. And I kind of like to look at it as every question you get asked has the potential to be a revenue generator for you. Maybe not all of them and maybe not all the time, but if you're constantly getting asked let's say you're a family photographer and you're being asked, like, how do you pose people? That could become a mini course that you create and sell. It could even become a how-to guide that you create and sell on your website. It could be an ebook. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could take that knowledge and put it out there. And one of the things I find with photographers is that other photographers are very interested in what they do. Like, I think that's true, not just photography, graphic design is the same. There's always people who want to know how you do the thing, right?
yes.
So they may not be the person who hires you to take photos of their family, but there's still an opportunity to sell and market to that group of people who's constantly asking you questions. If you think about how much time it would take you to respond every time somebody asks you how to pose people. But if you take that same idea of how to pose people, you can multi-purpose that. Let's say you make it into a guide that you sell on your website to people who want to start their own photography business. You can also take that guide and use it as an add-on to your family photography packages, where you're like, hey, if you're not comfortable in front of a camera, here's a free guide. Just skim through it before your session, and it will give you some tips on ways to feel more comfortable and to relax in front of the camera. So suddenly it becomes a value add as well as a product that you can sell.
Yeah. And there's
So
also an opportunity. Like I always think about whenever I talk with the clients that I consult with on social media, one of the things that I always say to them, they're like, "Oh, I'm always sold for content." And I always say to them, your FAQs are the biggest resource that you have for content. FAQs to me equal content. That's content creation opportunity. And so, what are, just exactly as you said, what are those common questions that you get, and how can you turn that either into an asset or some sort of content or both? And so, to follow along your example, all I'm imagining is some creative reel that has the highlight points from this digital download or this asset around posing. How do you pose a family? Then you can create a really awesome reel or TikTok and share it. People then will go, wow, this is so cool. Great tips. And they're going to share it, share it, share it. And then you're going to get new followers, new fans, new subscribers, new people on your existing content because of simply answering a question that people ask you all the time. And you
yeah.
answer all the time. That's the thing. You're already doing the work. So,
Mhm.
how can you do less of that work over and over again and, in fact, make money from it or gain followers or attention or eyeballs? Like, how can you skin that cat? Sorry for cat lovers. Every
No,
time I use that expression, I like cat lovers look at me and I'm like, it's just an expression. Anyway.
no, but that's like a really great point. Like those questions that you get asked over and over again, the questions that you have, you have an FAQ section on your website. Each of those has the potential to be fleshed out into a blog post, a product, some kind of content. But yeah, definitely a product. I'm in the process of doing that right now.
Right? Like if your FAQ is where your rates for service,
Mhm.
don't just tell people what. You post it to your Instagram all the time, right? So you're pulling it out all the time. That's the thing, I
Exactly.
think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. I write, or I don't write, I design recipe ebooks for clients in the food space. And I'm always, one of the things that get, I don't want to say frustrated with, but because I have a lot of work in the digital content sphere and I understand digital content marketing, when I see them take their finished ebook that they're so proud of because they've put so much
Yeah.
work into it. And I'm proud of it too, because I put the
Yeah.
design work into it. And then I see them struggle with marketing it. And I just want to send them all the email tips like, here's what you need to do. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I've written a how-to guide, how to market your recipe ebook. And now I'm just in the process of designing it. And it will be something that I will sell on my website, but it will also be something that I give to new clients when they sign on to me for like a custom package. They'll get that as a bonus. So it's a great way to take all this knowledge that's in your head and get it out and sell it to people. And also, how many times as creatives do people email us wanting to know our process, wanting to know how we do the thing? Where do you get your canvases from? How do you do, like, how do you, and a lot of us, there's kind of two ways that people tend to go on this. You either tend to wrap yourself up in it all and not share your secrets because
Yeah.
you don't want the world to know how you do
Show
things.
and share food.
Or you want to help all the people,
Yeah.
but you don't have the time to help all the people.
Yeah.
Right. So creating some kind of course, like a course is a no-brainer. You can make a simple go at your own pace course that's available anytime that people can
Yep.
sign up for. And so when people come to you and ask you those questions, you can just say like, you know what, I would love to answer all your questions, but I just, I, I can't give you that much of my time right now, but I have a course where I lay it all out and I explain it and I show you exactly how I make the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to check it out. Okay.
I,
If they're,
I've taken courses, so I mean I'm a recovering home blogger, but I don't decorate other people's houses. Unless they really want me to, but it's not for pay. Like I'm an artist, but I don't decorate people's homes. But I love Sophie Robinson, who's a UK British interior decorator. She's like maximalist, color, color, color.
She uses
She
all
and
the funky wallpapers, doesn't
oh
she?
yeah, she's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah, it's so fabulous. And she has a podcast that I listen to that's all about home decor. And I love her because she's a color lover, but I've also taken um she has courses on color theory, and I've taken those courses because they appeal to me. And I think this is where you were going when you started out, is that I am I'm not her core audience. I'm not going to hire her to decorate my house. I'm not decorating other people's houses. I follow her as a color lover, and her courses around home decorating for home stylists appealed to me, and I paid cash money for it and
Hmm.
took a go at your own pace color theory course that I found absolutely enlightening.
Yep.
And and but I would say I'm not her target audience for that, but I would fall into a good chunk of people who paid money for it because it aligns with the interests. And so I would say you could potentially expand your audience. There's ways that you can reach people. And whenever this is where I was going with this sort of long roundabout story is whenever people ask her a question about how do you, that's her opportunity to say, ooh, my quarterly course on color theory is coming up in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Don't forget to register. So I'm not answering that question over and over again. I'm pointing you to the FAQ asset, whatever that is, the course, the ebook, and saying the answer's over here. Stay tuned, right? And that's such an efficient way of doing it, but also hopefully an income generating way to do it.
Absolutely. I just bought a course. I got a new iPad, so I'm using Procreate for the first time, and I I'm trying to figure it out. Like I know it can
Yeah.
do so much, but I don't know where all the things are to make it
Yeah.
do the things I want to do. So that's what I've done. I've signed up for a program that's put on by an incredibly talented illustrator. And I guess she probably also got tired of people asking her how to do.
What's crazy is I could see like a year from now, you pulling together a Procreate tips for ebook designers workbook. Do you know what I mean? Like that knowledge and that you and I talked about this last time, but that curiosity for learning more, that can fuel like you learning more. Now you can apply it to your business and take those nuggets and say, ah, here's what I've learned. And then
Yeah,
apply it to your own niche and audience and scope of learning and scope of interest. And there's just so much possibility. The trick is making a list of all the things that you need to do and then finding the time to do it.
okay, you just brought up an excellent point. An excellent, excellent point. Because what happens is, and so this book that I just talked about, this guide that I'm putting together, it took me a full year to sit down and write it from when I had the idea. The guide, it's not long. It's a guide, it's not a book. The guide has been written for months. So it took me a
Yeah.
full year to get to the point where I was writing it. And then now it's written and it's been sitting there for months because now I got to find the time to design it. And because it's my project, it goes to the bottom of the list underneath all the client projects. So that is something I've made. And I know I'm not the only person who struggles with this. We all do this. We put our projects to the bottom of the list. They
Yep.
always go to the bottom. Clients go to the top. And that's
Yep.
not to say that clients shouldn't be at the top. They're hopefully paying you good
Yes.
money to
Yeah.
get your attention, to have your undivided attention. But what I've had to do this year, because it's my mastermind group is just fed up of hearing me talk about how I have to do this book, right? Like just shut up about it. We don't want to hear about it. They're very nice. They don't say things like that, but I know.
Now do. Yeah.
So that's what I've had to do. And that was one of my goals this month, was to set aside a minimum of an hour a week in my planner, physically
Yep.
written down with a checkbox
Yeah.
next to it, to work on this. And so I've actually made headway, and it's not too far from being ready to publish. But this is an important thing when you are trying to create products that you can sell as opposed to just doing your services. You really have to figure out how to prioritize
Yep.
time to get those products out there, because they don't make you any money until they're actually created. So, and some of them take more work than others. Putting together a course, I've never done it, but I would imagine that to me seems like it would be a lot more work than putting together a quick
Yep.
how-to guide.
Yep.
But I guess that depends on your skill set. So
Yeah. And
Uh,
if I were making a list and checking it twice of all of the things that I was doing, so if I'm making a list of possibilities, courses, ebooks, digital downloads, reels, TikToks, Instagram content, I would make a list of all the different ways you can slice it, right? So everything that can be a reel can be an Instagram grid post, that can also be an ebook, could also potentially be a course, right? Like you just expand, expand, expand and distill down further depending on, but figure out what's easiest to do, what you can get done, and then just start chipping away. I think that's the thing, is just starting the process and then figuring out too, if there's two different projects that you could work on, and one you know is going to make money and one you're kind of like throwing spaghetti against the wall, start with the one that you know is going to make money. I know that feels obvious, but I tend to be the person, the one that's the throwing the spaghetti against the wall is obviously the funner one,
it usually
obviously,
is. Yeah.
right? And so I tend to be like, let's just try this first. And no, that's when you need to put your business pants on and say, no, we're doing this one first. This is where
Yeah.
I'm putting my energy, because I'm going to reap the rewards and I'll give myself income and time to throw spaghetti against the wall later. Easier said than done.
Yeah,
I'll
it
I'll replay
is.
this myself later, because I won't, I do as I say, not as I do, very clearly.
Exactly. It's a mindset thing too. And I think there's a little bit of fear in
Yes.
there. Like we put it off because we don't
Yep.
we don't want to get to the point where we have to put the thing out, because that's kind of scary. What if nobody buys it?
Yeah.
And I think I've spoken about this before, maybe not recently, but back when I ran Food Bloggers of Canada, we had the idea for a planner, a digital download planner for food bloggers. We had the idea for years, and because I was the designer, it was on me to execute it. Um, and I put it off for ages because I was so terrified that it would be dumb, or that nobody would buy it, or just all the little hangups we have. And literally, I finally sat down and created it, and then I sat on it for like the entire month of December, when it should have been out there being sold, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when
Yeah.
people buy. So it literally
Yep.
went up for sale on December 31st. Because I just realized, if you don't put it up for sale now, you got to wait a whole year,
Yep.
and all that work has
Yes.
gone to waste. You're gonna have to redo it
Yes.
for. So I put it up for sale, and you know what? Of course, people bought it. Like, did we sell thousands of them? No, but we bought enough where I was like, oh my God, I made a thing and I put it out there and people gave me money for it. Like, I
Yeah.
was pretty chuffed by the whole thing. So, but yes, there's a whole mindset issue to it. It's one thing to go out and take photos of a family, or to design something for a client, or to write copy for a client. Like, that's our comfort zone. It's a whole other thing to like put a physical thing out there and just ask the
Yes.
world to give us money for it. And really, when
I
you
find
think about it, it's silly. It
Well,
is.
and I find for me, like I'm my own worst enemy, but I'm also the if anybody's gonna crack a whip and make me do something, it's me, not anybody else. And
Yeah.
so self-imposed deadlines for me are very, and so if I have decided that I'm gonna do something and it's going out, you at some point need to start talking about it and advance promo and market it. Use your e-newsletter, use your Instagram stories, start telling people, hey guys, you've asked all these questions about, how to style a food plate, or how to store your camera equipment in the off season, or whatever the guide is that you're pulling together, or content. You're going to need to start promoting that at some point, and you need to drum that up before you actually put the thing out there. And so I find, if I have a backtrack date and you're like, well, you need to start talking about it in your e-newsletter now, people are going to start asking you, when is this coming? Is this available yet? And that pressure, personally, I find very helpful. And it's once you start talking about it, like, you put it into the universe, it's happening, whether you like it or not. So you kind of have to just bite the bullet. And I think thinking through the marketing will actually help you accomplish the thing, if you if you integrate the marketing into the whole process and start thinking about how you're going to sell this thing in
Yes.
advance of putting
Yes.
it out there.
Because I think that's another hurdle for a lot of people, is actually doing the marketing, because we don't want to feel salesy.
Yeah.
right? So we
Yeah.
avoid marketing it because we don't want to
Yeah.
be, and I see this all the time with my clients. Like I I help clients with their newsletter writing. So they're in people's inboxes however many times a month they choose
Yeah.
to be. And I also help them create their ebooks that they sell. And it's so interesting to watch. Um, nobody wants to nobody sends out emails as often as they would like to send them out. Right. So
Yeah.
if you're the kind of person, if you're sending out emails weekly, you're probably wishing you could do it 2 times a week, but you feel like that would be annoying. If you send them out every 2 weeks, you probably wish you could send them out weekly, but again, you're worried you'll be annoying. And if you send them out once a month,
Yep.
like
Yep.
so because
Yeah.
you're so worried about annoying. Well, what if they unsubscribe? What if I'm irritating them? I just had this conversation with a client last week, just worried, like, what if we were talking about an automation series. What if people unsubscribe? And it's like, don't send the emails out every day, then send them out every 2 days. But the worry is there. Like, and it's the same thing with marketing their book. They've just spent a whole ton of money designing this book, and it's full of great stuff. I know I'm dealing with the content that's in the book all day long, and I can see like this is awesome. Like people need this book in their lives. And yet when it comes time to actually marketing the book, it's one email out to their audience and it's one Instagram post and then they're done because I don't want to annoy people. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And honestly, I've even had it like we've talked about this many times. It's no news to anybody that I'm working on an exhibition. But I literally, Brian said to me the other day, he's like, the marketing plan for actually selling the art. And I was
Mm.
like, yeah. And I was like, big gulp. Okay. Yes.
I
Yes.
was I
Noted.
was I was thinking about this when we recorded last week. I think we were talking about it off the air after we finished and we were talking about your prep or something. But like I have seen you talking about the exhibition all over social media. I know when the exhibition is, I know what it's about, I know when it's coming. I've seen the paintings, but I have not seen you say one single word about how people can buy those paintings.
I
Not once.
know. I'll tell you categorically, I'm looking at my planner that's filled with Fine Lime Designs rainbow planner stickers. I'll just small plug for Melissa's Fine Lime Designs beautiful
She
fine
doesn't want to
illustrated.
bother you to tell you about her stickers.
Exactly. I will sell for Melissa. But there is a big note here, sell art. And that's actually, I'm working on it for my next e-newsletter. And it's literally all about and I'm just going to cut straight to it. Like I'm not going to, because I think this is the thing. All of us, anybody who's like, if they subscribe to your e-newsletter, they know you sell things. So getting
Yeah.
an e-newsletter or seeing on Instagram and you're not being sold to, I'm not saying you're disappointing your audience, but like they know that you have stuff to sell.
Yeah.
They know that you do. So just rip the band-aid off and start talking about it. But yeah, it's a trick. All of the hurdles on doing things outside of your comfort zone are tricky. I'm a
It's a
big,
big mess in your head.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally get it. But I think one of the ways you have to look at it is that, and sometimes this helps, it can be hard to tell yourself this, but if other people are telling you this, you do need to listen. And that is that very often the thing that you're creating is going to make somebody's life better. And you have to remind yourself you're not selling them a thing.
yeah,
Like you're not selling them an ebook, you're selling them the opportunity to make really tasty dinners in under 30 minutes on a weeknight so that their
yeah,
kids have something to eat and you can get the family fed and get on with your evening. Right? That's what you're
yep.
selling them.
You're selling a solution. Yeah,
Exactly.
whatever that solution might be. How to
Mm-hmm.
style photos, how to do food, how to financial plan, whatever that solution is, a solution or a shortcut. I'll say
Yeah.
that. Solution or shortcut.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so there's a number of ways you can do that. You could, like we said, you can do courses, you can do how-to guides, you can do ebooks. All three of those are very easy. And you can use one idea and create all three of those as products.
Yep.
So if you're using the idea of how to how to pose people at a family photo shoot, that could be a mini course, it could be an ebook, and then you could pull the most important points out of the ebook and turn it into a little small guide that you sell cheaper or that you use as a lead magnet on your website. So there's so many ways you can take one idea and repurpose it, just like Heather was saying, like really dig into all the different ways that you can take that thing and
Yeah.
do different. And you don't have
And
to
like,
charge money for all of them, but
no, no. And in fact, I was talking with a client the other day. She didn't, we were talking about gated content, and we were trying to understand the concept of gated content. And I said, gated is just that there's a hurdle that people have to pass in order to get it. So, you know, posting to your Instagram, there's no hurdles there. But a download, so free, there's a hurdle. So they have to click and then enter the email address. And then the next hurdle is paying. And so as people go over these hurdles, whatever steps there, that gate that they have to pass through is like a level up. We talked about leveling up, too funny last time we talked, but it's a level up. It's an opportunity for you to go one level deeper with the content, or lighter, whichever way you're thinking of that funnel, right? And each level is an opportunity, or each gate is an opportunity to either charge more or charge less, depending on which way you're going. So a real Instagram content free, right? And then you go to the Cole's Notes ebook, and that is $25. And then you go to the full course, that's $150, right? And it's the same content, but just distilled down. And sometimes you could start with just one and then, oh, wow, look, I can do this and do more.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can start with just one.
Yeah.
So those are three sort of content rich ideas for you to create a product from
Mhm.
what you do. And there's so many different things that you could do. It could be styling a family. It could be 25 social media prompts if you're a copywriter. It could be,
Yeah.
how to make your brand look cohesive if you're a graphic designer. There's just think about all the questions you get asked on a daily basis and how you could turn that into a product. The next one on my list is also just a plethora of options that you can do. I love that word, plethora.
I like
Um,
plethora.
and that is digital downloads. Digital downloads are huge right now. And if you are somebody who creates product already, this is something that might also be a good option for you, that you can branch out into a digital version. And Heather and I have both alluded to this over months and years about doing digital downloads. Heather, I know you sell your
Yep.
prints now as digital downloads for people who want to print them at home and have them on their wall in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you're a services provider, here's some ideas of things you could do. So if you're a graphic designer, this one's a no-brainer. You can create templates, you can create so many different things. You can do anything from greeting cards with a funky graphic image on them, all the way up to creating Canva templates for social media and everything in between. If you're a photographer, you might be thinking, what can I do as a digital download? But you can have digital downloads of your photos.
Yep.
This is particularly great if you are like a landscape photographer or a wildlife photographer. People love those kinds of photos, to have those on their
Yes.
walls. But let's say you're a family photographer or you do headshots or things like that. What about creating digital photo frames, a set of digital photo frames that people can download to use in their scrapbooking? Scrapbookers love digital downloads. So you might
Yep.
be thinking, I'm a photographer, I don't know how to make a frame. But what if you teamed up with a graphic designer and had them make them for you? So the
Yeah.
graphic designer is getting some money for making them for you. And then you've got this set of fun, funky digital photo frames that people can either print and put in their scrapbooks, or that they could use on their social media. When people get family shots done,
Oh
they
yeah.
put them on their Facebook
Yep.
page.
And I mean, even a digital theme for it, people putting stuff into PowerPoint presentations or sending it to grandma. And even, I've seen a lot of photographers doing like their filter presets.
Mhm.
So people can buy filter presets. So if you love a person on Instagram and the way their photos always look so whatever,
Yeah.
you can buy their filter presets and use it on your own photos
Oh,
and
I've bought many of those over the years.
yeah. And like, I mean, funny enough, you just posted about buying Procreate brushes
Mm.
and like brushes, that's I mean, who knew 5 years ago that you would be able to sell digital brushes on the interwebs? Like how crazy.
Yeah. And see, this is interesting. This harkens back to the conversation we were having before we started recording, where
Yeah.
Heather and I were talking a little bit about Patreon. And the person I bought the brushes from, I actually am a patron of hers on Patreon, but she's in the UK. So I don't get anything physical from her. I don't subscribe to one of those tiers. And I don't purchase from her very often, not as often as I would if I lived in the UK because of shipping. But she's created these digital brushes that I can use in Procreate. And they're on sale for £12 right now. Um, and like, and I love her work and I love the leaves.
Yeah.
I genuinely love the brushes and I will use them, but it was an easy way for me to support her without having to worry about shipping and getting my product and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, something like that. That's a great one for a graphic designer. She's an illustrator, the person who created the brushes that
Yeah.
I purchased. So that's a great option. If you're a fashion designer, what if you created patterns that
Oh my
people
God, I
could
would love that.
download, right?
Yep.
To sew. It could be just really simple things like a really classic blouse or a classic pair of shorts or, things that
Yep.
people will wear for years to come or be interested in from years to
Yep.
come. And you could create those and sell them on your website or on Etsy. Lots of people buy digital pattern downloads on Etsy.
Yep.
Same if you do any kind of fabric arts. Again, if you're a fabric artist, let's say you do embroidery or cross stitch and you sell the finished product. What if you sold digital patterns?
Yep.
Knitters, crocheters, same thing.
Yep.
So you could still be creating a physical thing, but then creating it as a digital option as well for people who want to make their own. So the next one on my list was prints of your work. So we kind of talked about this from a digital download perspective, but you could also create physical prints of your work to sell. And that leads into merch. So this, again, great one for photographers. But again, if you're like a fashion designer, most fashion designers I find are very good sketchers.
Yeah.
Like if you look at fashion sketches, they're usually
Yeah. They're
really
beautiful.
cool. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. What if you turn those sketches into prints? I mean, look at someone like Holly Nichols' illustration. Um,
Yep.
she's a huge Instagrammer, TikToker who does Copic marker. She's a fashion illustrator, but she does Copic marker. And she sells them on her Etsy shop. This is her business now, is selling prints, physical prints that she ships out.
It's like people like you can buy like a sketch that Tom Thompson did on like a little notepad for one of his painting, like the thing that made the thing possible
Mm,
is an
yes.
asset. And I think that
Yes.
we all forget that. And funny enough, I have been thinking of that because a good number of um, a lot of my paintings I've been sketching up in Procreate to really harness my time and just instead of standing in front of the canvas being like, what color should go there? I tend to map it out because I'm on a tight deadline. And but the finished sketches in Procreate are quite cool. And in fact, are their own. And so I have mentally thought to myself, there is an opportunity to harness this content and repurpose it in a funky postcard line or something. There's an asset here. I haven't quite figured out what it is, but it was just the other day and I was like, this isn't just the thing that facilitated the thing happening. This too is something.
Yes. So
Does that
another
make sense?
yes, it totally makes
Yeah.
sense. Another illustrator that I follow, she creates a zine, a limited edition printed zine every year that is images from her sketchbook. So they might
Brilliant.
be things that turned into a finished design or product, or they
Yep.
might be things that nobody's ever seen. And she puts
Yep.
them into a zine. She prints a limited quantity and she sells out of them every year. And she was, in fact, this year she was, or at the end of last year when she put out the most recent one, she was saying that she didn't realize how collectible these would become. And she actually does not have the first issue of her zine. She has all the
Right.
ones that came after, but she's like, I really wish I had the first issue, but I never thought to save myself one. And now, and part of the allure of them is they are only done in a limited quantity. So when they're gone and there's no more.
Somebody suggested the other thing when during my Saturday morning shirt sessions, and they were like, "Do you keep all of your this is going to sound funny if nobody knows what I'm talking about. Do you keep all of your shirts?" And yes, I do. All of my shirts are kept on a shelf in my studio. And but I don't have them dated with the day that we did it. I don't sign them on quite often. Like for instance, Melissa and I are on Zoom right now. We can see each other, but I have a shirt that I did, and on the back of it is notes that I took during a client meeting because that was the paper that was handy. And so I'm not precious about it, but one of my Sharties is, and in fact has created a Shart gallery wall in her house. So she's turned something that I did not think was going to be an asset into an asset. And then other people have suggested, could you imagine if you had this all as like a bound book and sold it at the end of, and so I think, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, there's a lot of things that you can do for your business in creating physical assets, digital assets, content creation opportunities. I think the thing that you need to be most aware of is that there's all of those opportunities, and be curious about saying, ooh, this could be something. I could do something with this. And then hopefully actioning some of those ideas.
Yeah, I think there's a time to create with no intention beyond just creating something. You're not thinking about, is it going to earn me money or not? And very often those things that you create are the ones that do turn into something that you can make money from, but you're going into it with a different mindset. And then there's a time to create where it is intentional for a revenue.
Yes.
So I think they're two different things. One can often become the other though. So you need to make time for both of those.
Yes.
Right? You need to make time to intentionally create to earn money, because at the end of the day, we create for a living. We need to make money. So there has to be some intention behind it. And this also gets into the whole question of creating things that are commercially viable, as well as creating things that are maybe nobody will like, right?
Yeah.
We need to do both. You need to create something that makes your soul happy.
Yes.
But as a working artist or creative who needs to earn a living, we also need to look at what's commercially viable and do both. Yep. So, and very often the things that are commercially viable are not the things that I love.
that's why it's so hard for so many creatives to market ourselves, because that is not, we're not marketers. We're creatives, we're artists. And so, yes, we could market creatively if we put our minds to it. But in terms of where the heart is and the energy and like making your to-do list for the day, of course it's going to drop to the bottom, because that's where I drop bookkeeping, because it's the last flipping thing I need to do, but it's essential for my business. And I think that's the thing, is that, and I hope that this is the theme of the episode, is that there's so many potentials to grow your business and so many opportunities. And it is a business. If you are creating for a living, you are running a business. And so just like doing your taxes, there's some things that you're going to have to sit down and just kind of muscle through. But I think, and just like doing your taxes, the more you know, the more empowered you are, the more you're going to get at running your business, right? And so the more you think about how you can generate alternate income streams, you're going to get better at it. Like those muscles are going to get better, and you're going to do more with it, I think. I hope.
Yeah. This is why it's so important to like set aside CEO time in your business, right? That's what you do on your CEO days. You sit down and you evaluate how your business is doing. Like you look at everything, you're looking at the big picture, and that includes your revenue streams. Do you have enough revenue streams? Do you have too many revenue streams? Because that's the thing that can happen too, right? Like there is a point where you just can't give everything the attention it deserves. And so you have to make decisions. But if you just have one revenue stream, You don't have enough revenue streams. Like, I firmly believe that. I think, to me, it's just so scary to just have one thing that makes you money in your business,
Mm.
because you just never know when that one
Yeah.
thing could get taken away for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So, yeah, I think, those CEO days are important. It's important to sit down and think about what you can create that can make you money, but also
Yep.
all the other things that go with it. How do I market it? Where do I set
Yeah.
aside the time? How do I fit it into my schedule? Who do I need to bring people on to help me with it? All those things. Those are all things that you sit down and think about in your CEO day, or however you manage that side of your business. But you need to make time to manage that side of
Yes.
your business.
And I would say too, the other thing is like, don't think of this thing as a forever thing, right? Like if you create a guide on how to style the perfect holiday table, whatever, this is your digital download or your ebook or your reel or whatever it is you've created. 6 months from now, you can delete it, remove it as an asset, and then start another one or
Mm-hmm.
bring it back seasonally. It could
Or
be
create
something
a
that
body
does,
of work.
yeah,
Like,
like
I
it can
love
be
it.
seasonal. It can, you know what I mean? Like you don't, it's not a forever. I don't know. Anyway.
I love it when I find somebody who's doing something that I'm really interested in enough to buy, and I go to their
Yes.
website and then I see all the other things they have
Yes.
they're available to buy, because they have like, and it's like, "Ooh, that looks interesting and that looks interesting." Right. So that's always, and I find this particularly with ebooks, people, a great way to market ebooks is when you sell them in a bundle. Same with
Yeah.
courses. Have you ever noticed when you buy a course and you go to click the purchase now button after you get through the very long copy
Yeah.
page telling you why you need this course, you click the buy button and you give them your credit card, and then just before it's about to go through, a pop-up comes up and says, "But wait."
Yes.
But wait,
You know.
would you like to add on this free or this $20 mini course on
Yeah.
how to do whatever, right? And so sometimes you get convinced that you need it and you check the box because it's only $20, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes another pop-up appears. Well, now that you bought these two, would you be interested? So it can go on and on forever. That's a bit much, but it's having things that you can bundle together or offer as
Totally.
add-ons to all these kinds of products. That's a great way. It's the fry, would you like fries with that mentality,
Totally.
right? So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
liked this, so you might like this.
Yeah.
The last one on my list is merch. And this is just like also a huge category.
Yeah.
Merch can be anything physical that you
Yep.
sell that you have made. And you don't even need to make it in this era of print
Nope.
on demand. You don't even need to be the person making the thing or
Yep.
having the thing in your house. You just slap your artwork or whatever you create on it. So, and I'm seeing, I think musicians are really good at merch.
Mm.
They're so good. I mean, have you ever noticed when you go to a concert, like the
Oh,
merch tables, like there's all the
merch table.
stuff to buy.
And I'll tell you, funny enough, I was just thinking of merch this morning because I saw a brand that I follow on Instagram. They were like, "Who's up for some merch?" And I'm like, "Oh, great, another fucking branded t-shirt." And that because and this is like my whole all of my rags in my studio are branded t-shirts from freaking cycling events that Brian goes to. And I'm like, another stupid t-shirt with stupid graphics on it that he's never gonna wear ever, 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 ever. And I hate the disposable
They're
merch with
painting
the logo
t-shirts.
just for the
Yeah.
exactly. They're painting shirts like they're and the world does not need those. Like we do not need those. And, and so when I think of merch, like when you're making merch, make it meaningful, make it so aligned with your brand, make it unique, make it because I keep seeing stuff that I'm like, oh my God. And how many times, you and I've talked about this a million times, how many, like we both come from the food industry, how many shitty aprons have we gotten at food conferences? And you're like, we need another apron. If I still had them all, I'd probably have 45 aprons.
I've only ever gotten one apron at a
Oh
conference, and
my
I
God.
love it. It's a denim, heavy duty denim
Me
chef's
too.
apron, and I wear it all the
Yeah.
time.
But anyway, where I'm
It's got
going with
big
that,
pockets. Yeah, it's very cool.
like merch to me, you need to be really thoughtful and really deliberate about
Mhm.
how, and if it's something like a throwaway, like you're just throwing something up on Redbubble, seeing how it goes and then deleting the design, go for it. But if you're printing like 200 t-shirts that you plan on having in your studio with some witty line about photography, you need to be really careful that that is going to hit your audience. Like, this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, which is understanding your audience and understanding that it might not be your core audience you're targeting with whatever it is that you're producing, but you still need to think about who might be the end buyer
Yeah,
for
that's very good
like merch for
advice.
merch's sake is so not.
No, no, and that's not what we're advocating
Yeah,
here by any means. Heather and I are
no,
both quite minimalist, so that's we don't like things that are just there for the sake of
for the sake
making
of
a
it,
thing.
exactly.
But there are a lot of things you can do, and if you are intentional about it, you can be quite successful with it. And it requires thought. It's not just slapping
Yeah.
your latest drawing on a coffee cup, but looking at the things that you have in your intellectual property
Yeah.
box and seeing
Yeah.
like what, let's say you have, and I keep going back to photographers because I don't know why. But let's say you have a photo that you have shared on social media that has done very well, and you've reshared it over the years, and it always does really well for whatever reason. Maybe that is the photo that you use in your merch because you already know people gravitate towards it, right? So, and maybe photos don't always look great on t-shirts and coffee cups. So maybe you don't do t-shirts and coffee cups, but you could do a line of fine art prints. You could do a line of greeting cards. You could do postcards. Postcards are very affordable, right? And
Yeah.
the photos on them usually reproduce really well. So,
Yeah.
and then if that becomes a mini art print.
Yes.
So that might be something that works for you as a photographer.
Mhm.
If
There's
you
a
are,
therapist. Oh, sorry. There's
no,
a
go ahead.
therapist I found online. Her name's Tiffany Rowe, and she's a therapist. She offers therapy services. But one of the merch options that she sells and regularly sells out of are affirmation decks. And
Those are
so,
very popular right now. Yeah.
yeah. And she has affirmation decks for kids. She has affirmation decks for grown-ups. And she's regularly hyping them, but also regularly using them. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I love about it is that she demonstrates for any of the things, whether it's a digital download or a course or anything that she's advocating, she clearly shows that she is behind it and that she either uses it in her own practice or it's something that gets used. And I think that that's to me what resonates most about it is that it's so clearly not a thing that she's making to sell to you. It's a so back to what we said
It's a
earlier,
tool. She's
it is a
created a
tool and
tool
it's
for
a
you.
solution for something that she actively, and I love that. And I think that that to me it resonates so well and it makes the selling of it super authentic. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that and it makes it really easy for her to sell it because it's you believe in it, you understand it. You're not like, oh, here's more stuff on a t-shirt
Yeah.
kind of.
I
Yeah.
do a lot of junk journaling. That's like my thing that I do to just relax and
Hmm.
chill. And so digital downloads are very popular in the junk journaling community or kits for stuff. And so many of the people who produce those, they do exactly that. They'll show you on their YouTube channel or on their Instagram, like, oh, and I'm using this month's kit, and they're cutting out the pieces and they're creating a spread in their journal, using the different pieces from the kit, showing you exactly how it works and using their own stuff. I mean, from an illustration standpoint, I sell greeting cards, stickers, and art prints. Okay, so the
Hmm.
greeting cards and the art prints, those are for the consumer. The stickers are for me.
Yeah.
I make
My
stickers.
information, I love your stickers. They're on my notebooks, they're on my laptop, they're on my iPad case. Your stickers are everywhere.
I make my stickers for myself. They are the stickers that nobody else makes that I would buy if somebody made them, because making stickers is actually kind of a pain in the ass. Like, I couldn't find the stickers I wanted to use in my planner, so I made them. And because I made them, I was like, well, I might as well just sell them. Like, why not? I'm already making them. I print them every month for myself.
Yeah.
I don't do a very good job of showing myself using them, partly because planners are weird, right? Like I don't want people seeing my
Well,
planner is
and
my
that's the thing.
Bible.
Every time I go to show my planner to people, they're like, I was in a meeting the other day and they're like, oh my gosh, I opened it up. And they're like, well, let me see your planner. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And I put my hand on top of it. And I'm like, well, here you can see all of the pretty stickers, but you can't see my to-do list. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my planner's like letting somebody into my diary. It's
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but interestingly,
okay.
on Instagram, I think it is, my most popular reels and videos before they turn videos into reels were always the ones where
Yeah.
I showed my planner set up. Because I think people are nosy about how other people do their planners, but I think people also just
Yeah.
like to see, like, this is me using
Yeah.
my stickers. So yeah, you
Yeah.
want to be intentional about it. And yeah, if you're creating something for yourself, then maybe there's a market for it for other people. So
Yeah.
but when it comes to merch, there's so many different types of options. Like there's the ones that everyone does, like the mugs and the t-shirts and the enamel pins and the prints. And, shopping bags are really big right now that more and more cities are passing bylaws that you can't use plastic shopping
Yeah.
bags anymore. So those have become really popular, but think outside the box on what other things you could potentially make. Does it have to, I don't need another mug. I'm just going to be really upfront. I don't
Yeah.
need mugs.
No.
I don't need plastic pens and stuff like that. But um, think about what you could create that might be really interesting for your particular
Hmm.
audience. Somebody out there came up with the idea to put their illustrations on enamel pins, and now everyone does it. So maybe you could be the person who comes up with the next thing that
Yes.
becomes popular.
Being intentional and seeing opportunities and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, I think that's a great idea, is think about what you would enjoy, because a lot of art and creativity we create because it's something that we want to see out in the world. And sometimes you don't know if other people are going to want to see it unless you create it, unless you make it, right? So,
Yeah. This is also the beauty of social media is it offers you this testing ground
yeah.
where
Yes.
you can put things out there and ask people what they think. I mean, you do have to
Yes.
be careful with that because a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I love it." But do you love it enough to spend $15 on it?
Yeah.
Like that's a different question,
No
right?
kidding.
Because we've
Yeah.
all fallen into that trap where people have been like, "Oh, I love it." And you make the thing and nobody buys it
Oh my
because
God. If my income was based on the amount of people telling me they love my stuff on Instagram, I'd have a lot more money in the bank.
exactly.
So, yeah.
So, to flip this around a little bit, if you are somebody who already makes products, you sell on your own website or you sell on Etsy or a platform like that, or you do print on demand, you can flip this around a little bit and think about the kind of services that you could potentially offer. And so,
Mhm.
this isn't going to be for everyone. If you're I personally, as somebody who does both, I think it's easier to go from being a service provider to adding products than to go from being a product seller to adding services, because
Yeah.
services requires a whole different customer service mindset, client servicing mindset that you don't necessarily have to embrace as a product seller. You still have to have customer service skills by all means, but
Yeah.
it's a different
Very
kind of
different.
customer service.
Yeah.
So this may not be for you, but if it is something you are considering, first of all, workshops, if you don't want to go the course route, but like think about, this happens to me just talking about stickers. I get asked all the time, how do you make your stickers? What kind of paper
Right.
do you use? Where do you get your sticker paper? What machine do you use? Like people have a lot of questions around
Yep.
stickers because they're so popular right now.
Yep.
So maybe if I wanted to, I could teach a workshop on how to make stickers. There's lots of YouTube videos out there on how to make stickers, but people still like to hear it from the person who they follow who's making the
Totally.
stickers.
Yes. I've done building gallery wall workshops.
Yeah,
And so and like, I mean, type into Google how to build a gallery wall. There's like probably 100 YouTube videos. There's articles from every major home decor
I know. But
magazine.
people who follow you want to know how Heather builds a gallery wall.
And that's exactly it. And so just because it exists out there, just because there's a chocolate chip cookie recipe out there, doesn't mean that your chocolate chip cookie recipe won't land perfectly with your audience, or that people will say that's the chocolate chip recipe that I want.
Yes. I was just talking about this in an email I sent out to clients, is that you need to remember that the people who follow you, there's a trust factor there. So they want your chocolate chip cookie recipe because they've made your other recipes and they're really good. And so they want to know how you make a chocolate chip cookie, because it's probably going to be better than all the other chocolate chip cookie recipes, right?
Yeah.
Or why would I try a chocolate chip cookie recipe from somebody I don't know? It could be icky. Like, what if they did put weird things in it? Right?
Yeah. Or
So
for instance, whenever I follow her recipes, the timing is never right. You know, the time
exactly.
they always end up burnt. But whenever I follow Heather's recipes, and it could just be that our ovens are calibrated the same way, and it has nothing to do with me or you or the
Yeah, you
recipe,
live at the same
right?
altitude or
Right? Like there could be so many intangibles, but it's the
yes.
connection. I think we've talked about customer service, and I think the biggest lesson, whether you're adding a product to your service-based business or a service to your product-based business, this is, yes, about selling more things and building your business, but this is about the community that you have and building a community around you, your products, your services, and your way of doing things,
Mhm.
your chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah. So workshops are a great way to do that. I kind of view workshops, they sort of straddle the line between being a service and a product. I view them as
Totally.
they can be both.
Yeah.
So workshops, you could even create a course. Again, that's a product slash service almost. But oh, I just drew a blank. I just had, oh, speaking. So Heather
Mm,
mentioned right at the beginning of the episode how she does speaking engagements.
mhm.
That's a service that you could offer um, as a product seller. So it could be, I don't know, it could be how you grew your business, or you have like these sort of pre-made speeches that
Yep.
you customize them a little bit for each audience, but basically the content is the same. And so you create one or two of those, and you can give those to your local chamber of commerce. You could do them at your local rec center. You could do them online as a Zoom webinar that people pay for. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can do speaking, which is very similar to workshops, just less hands-on and less one-on-one. So that's another thing you can do if you
Yep.
create and so there's so many different ways that you can, whether you're a product creator or creative services provider, there's so many different ways that you can branch out and create these additional streams of revenue that just help protect your business,
Yeah.
make your business more stable. So
They
I
also
kind of
highlight the uniqueness of being you, right? Like
mhm,
your guidebook on setting a table, same as the chocolate chip cookie analogy. Your guidebook is got the Melissa flair to it,
that's
versus my guidebook would have the Heather flair to
you're
it.
selling
And
your
that,
style.
yeah,
And that's what people tend to connect with us, right? Like if Heather and I were to style a table, which Heather would probably be much more successful at than me,
they would both. I
but
would tell you, you and I would both have very colorful tables.
they would both have
That's a
very colorful tables, but
yeah,
they would look very different. And this
yeah.
is this is a friend of mine. The two of us, we used to go down into Vancouver quite often. We haven't done this for years, but we would go into the city and we for lunch or whatever, and we'd kind of go on a photo safari. And so we would very often take photos of the exact same things. But when we shared the photos on social media, it was so obvious which were his and which were mine. Like we saw the same thing in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And this is what you're selling to the world. You're selling the way you see it
Yeah.
and the way that you recreate it and the way that you interpret it. And nobody else can do this. I don't know if this episode is going to go up before the one I recorded the other day or not, but I was having a conversation with a guest about the use of AI and things like ChatGPT. And so that's coming up in an episode, or it may have already aired. We'll see how this goes. But that's one of the things that we were talking about, is that AI is very popular right now and people are talking a lot about it, and it is here to stay. And it is something that as creatives that we need to understand and learn how to work with. And frankly, we've already been working with it. If you use Photoshop or Canva or any of those tools, that's AI. So,
Yeah.
but the one thing AI can't reproduce right now. I don't know if it's coming, but right now they can't reproduce the way you see the world.
Correct.
They can't reproduce your take on things.
Yeah.
That's what makes you special. And so
Yeah.
that's the thing that you have to distill and put out into the world, because there are people out there who want it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the heart of this entire episode, is finding the thing
Yeah.
that makes you you, and figuring out how you can get that out into the world and earn a
Yeah.
living from it.
Yes. And the headline, I think the headline is the fun, the whatever the guidebook is. There might be 50 other guidebooks on how to cook a chocolate chip cookie, but it's the you that makes that
Yeah.
guidebook different than the others. So don't look and say, "Oh, there's 50 other guidebooks out there," if you're doing market research. And it's interesting. I I tend to not do market research when I have ideas, because
Me
that's when
either.
I get flooded with either
Insecurity.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's scary. I can't do it. And the same thing. If I approached like a product or a solution the same way I approach a painting, I would be much better off, because if I want to paint a painting, I don't research if somebody else has painted that painting. I paint the painting. And so if you're going to make the guidebook and you figured out what special sauce that you can put into that guidebook or ebook or course or lecture or whatever it is, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah,
Like,
because you do have a special sauce. We all
yeah.
do. And sometimes I think we're a little afraid to put it
Mm,
out there for so many different reasons. And that's totally fair, because we all deal with it. But don't be afraid to be unique. I think sometimes we try to soften who we are because we don't want to be controversial, or we don't want to upset anyone or offend anyone, which is important to a certain extent, right? We don't ever want to upset or offend anyone because we're being mean,
yeah.
right? But I think we also have to understand that the world is made up of billions of people, and we all have a different viewpoint, and we're not all going to see eye to eye on things. So, it's okay to niche down and allow your true self to come out.
That's so true. And I think it's easier said than done, particularly when you're creative. And I think if you're thinking about creating like an ebook or a guidebook or a course, the hesitation would be, what do I know that, nobody else knows? And it's not that you know more than other people.
Yeah,
It's
you
that
probably
you
don't
know
know anything,
something
but
exactly, but you know how to present it in a way that
yes.
is going to understand it.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly it. It's how you present the
Yeah.
thing. That's why there's thousands of podcasts and millions of blogs, and they all have an audience, because people are drawn to or gravitate towards how that
Yeah.
person creates. And we're not just drawn to one. I mean, think about Netflix or YouTube. YouTube's a good example because it's creatives creating
Yeah.
content on a platform with millions of channels, right? We don't just watch one YouTube channel. We
Oh
watch
God, no.
multiple YouTube channels. I think I subscribe to 100 different YouTube channels. They're
Yeah.
all different. Some of them are in the same niche, but I just like the way this person does this thing, and I like the way that person does this thing. And this one makes me laugh, but this one makes me think. And,
Yeah.
there's room for all of them. I could go
Totally.
subscribe to my 101st channel right now, and it wouldn't mean I don't love the others any less, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So,
just like reading books. Like reading books
yes.
you have authors you love and you try new books, and yeah. And putting one book down doesn't mean that you don't like it anymore. You're just moving on to the next thing.
No,
Yeah.
and there's market research that shows that people who read books are how does it go? The people who read books buy the most books, essentially,
Yes.
right? I mean, it sounds so ridiculously simple, but
Yep.
it's true, right? If you have a new book coming out, you want to get it in front of people who already buy books because they love books. It's not
Yep.
the author, like they're loyal to authors, but there's always room for another author to come onto the bookshelf.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
right, the hard person to sell it to is the person who reads one book a year, and it's the
Yeah.
latest John Grisham.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Soup for the soul or something. But that's exactly it. Like I think, yeah, it's putting your special sauce, putting your own colors on it, putting your own bent on it, using the language that you want to use,
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're putting out there. And I think that that's knowing your audience, but also knowing yourself and saying that I'm confident in what I have to share.
Mhm.
And people ask me this question all the time. So you know what? Instead of just responding quietly in the DMs, I'm going to make this an ebook.
Mhm.
And people want to know this information. And don't tell yourself otherwise until you finished it and put it out there and nobody's bought it. That, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get proved wrong. If you put it out there, somebody's going to buy it. Somebody,
If you tell them it exists, let's
yes.
make that really
Oh, yeah,
clear.
correct.
You can create the thing and you can put it out there, but if you don't tell anybody it exists, nobody will buy it. So that is
Very
really key.
true.
You do have to get over that fear of telling the world that you've created the
Yes.
thing, right?
And more than once.
Yes.
Once.
I have heard everything lately that it take like so there's a common knowledge in marketing that there's so many touch points before a customer will pull the trigger and get their wallet out and purchase.
Yeah.
And I have heard everything recently that it's 7 touch points all the way up to 18 touch points.
Yeah.
Like 18, when did we get that? Where did that number come from? But think about it. And in a product selling group I'm in lately, one girl posted last month about how to keep emailing your list because she just had somebody pull the trigger on I think it was a $200 purchase, who has opened the last 10 emails that this person has sent out without making the purchase. So that was 10 touch points. And who knows how many on social media if they follow on social,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Before they actually were like, okay, I'm going to do it. So,
Yep.
if that woman who was selling the item had only sent out one email and put it on social media one time, she'd never have made the sale.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Somebody said to me, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting tactic. I've never thought of doing that before. And it's a little bit more aggressive salesy than I would, I guess, in my gut be comfortable. But I'm like, no, that actually makes sense. So any person who liked a reel regarding an event, the event organizer actually slid into their DMs and said, thank you so much for liking the event reel. It looks like a great time. I hope you'll be able to join us. And that additional touch point that was personalized resulted in event tickets being sold.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm like, ooh, that was a good marketing lesson in how to turn likes into actual tangible somethings.
Yeah.
And
The product seller course I'm in teaches that as a tactic that you can do, or something as simple. If they like a reel or a story, you drop into the DMs and say, hey, I'm so glad you like this. Here's a
yeah,
coupon code for 20% off if you decide to purchase. And
yeah,
it almost always results in sales. I can't bring myself to do it. That's outside of my comfort zone, but I
yeah,
do know that it works. So if
yeah.
you're a little more ballsy than I am,
I know that's I need to get a little bit better at that.
it's hard. And you're better at it than I am. I am terribly shy about that. And yet I coach so many of my clients to be like, you need to get out there more. You need to put it in you need to send a launch email. You need to do this.
That is literally the first piece. Any new client I onboard, I say to them, and I encourage you to follow me on social media because I'm very transparent. But I encourage you to follow me on social media, and I will say categorically, do as I say, not as I do. I give great advice. Whether I listen to my own advice
It's a
is
totally
a
different
whole
thing. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
don't look at my Insta as a PR person. Don't look at my Instagram as the way to market your art, right? Like I'm struggling through the weeds just like everybody else is. We can all read the self-help books and the best practices. It's what you actually decide to implement.
It's your own mindset. And I think very often the thing that we know how we like to be sold to. And so that is typically, I think, how we tend to sell.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like being
Yeah, like the hard sell.
forcibly sold to. I don't like the hard sell. It makes me shrink back and say, go away.
Yeah.
You're in my
Oh, yeah.
space. So I am very reluctant to do anything that's even remotely a hard sell because I feel like I'm, and I think that's important to remember. Your customer is not you. This is the same thing when it comes to pricing, right? We all have our price threshold of what we'll pay for something. So maybe I'll pay $60 for a sweatshirt, but Heather's willing to pay $100 for a sweatshirt. Like,
Right.
so if I'm selling sweatshirts, I'm going to want to price them at like probably
Yeah.
$50 instead of 60 because I
Right.
want it to be a little lower than what I'll sell. Because who's going to buy it for $100? And yet Heather's very comfortable buying a sweatshirt for $100, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. It could flip flop. And that I think too, in terms of even pricing your products and services, when you put them out there, you need to think about the audience and how it compares to your other things. Because if
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're selling a $5 thing and all your other things are thousands of dollars, that's a very disjointed, and your audience is like, what? $5? If they've been spending 1,000, five is nothing. So you could probably get 50 out of them for that ebook
Mhm.
or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, so think that's a big one, the pricing strategy on
Yeah.
things.
Don't price it for you, price it
No,
for the person you want to buy it. So,
price it
yeah.
for your business.
Exactly. Exactly. Price it for your customer.
Yeah.
So we are, we're kind of slipping into like a whole other episode here
Oh my God.
how to
We could talk for
market.
hours.
But I think hopefully we've given you all some ideas of things that you can do to add a different dimension to your business, whether you are a service provider who wants to get into product or the other way around. But there's room for both in every business. The one thing I will just caution you on, because I've fallen into this trap, and I think Heather, you've probably fallen into it too, is just not overextending yourself. It can be very easy, especially if you are somebody who wants to try all the things. And all of a sudden you realize that it's a lot of balls to juggle, particularly if you don't have help.
Yeah.
If you get to a point where you've got lots of balls and they're doing really well for you, hire some help so that somebody can help you manage them and make sure that they are all being marketed properly. This is a mistake I see a lot of people make. They, particularly with ebooks, they'll have 10, 15 titles and they only market the most recent one because
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to market all the back issues. And
Yeah.
yet those back titles are still very worthwhile and could make you some money.
Totally.
So, balance it out. Don't overextend yourself, but definitely give yourself more options than just one revenue stream. I kind of hiccuped there.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have more than one chicken.
Exactly. Yes, right. You don't even want to have just one chicken and put their eggs in different baskets. You want to have multiple chickens filling all the baskets. All right, everyone. On that note, that's it for this week. And we will be back very soon with another new episode. So until then, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.